Okay, we are live now.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Hope you guys are good. Hoop het gaat goed saam met julle. I am on for East Jacob's page. I'm actually taking over. I've intercepted this page and I'm just playing. I've got Faiz with me and I'm going to interview him tonight and we're going to have a conversation. Normally he's on my platform, but he graced me tonight to be on his platform. We want to talk about the human rights and what it means to us. I think it's very important. We celebrate the day, but what are we actually celebrating? Are we really free? Do we really have human rights? Are we really protected? And that's the conversation we're going to have tonight. And I like the honesty about Faiz. We're going to be honest and we're going to say, you know what, we can do better, or, you know, we did our best. And that way we can see where we can better. Because, you know what, life is still here. We're going to still have to live life and we're still going to have to be positive. You know, for the next 30 years, we need to liberate ourselves still. Liberation is not only a 2-year thing or a 3-year thing, it's a lifelong thing where we have to liberate us from many things. But with any further ado, I've got Mr. Faiz Jacobs with me, Member of Parliament Faiz Jacobs. Faiz, welcome to Faiz Jacobs' page.
Thanks, Stan, Uncle Stan, my cousin from another mother. Long time no see. I think we saw each other at the Mitchell's Plain Book Festival, and we made some transactions with your book. And all the best and success. We're very proud from you and where you come from and what you've achieved.
Thank you.
And thanks for hosting us today. I think it's an interesting topic, human rights. Ons het lekker baklei toe ons laities was in die 80s and 90s for our freedom. And so I think part of it is just to defend our freedoms and also celebrate where we are and also acknowledge where we make mistakes. I think on paper. So if you allow me, I want to just remind everybody that we have a beautiful constitution. Mandela and Cyril het hy constitution genegotiate met die wit mense, and there were sunset clauses, but there was also something great. It gave political freedom and rights to everybody, not only white people. So today is Human Rights Day, and we need to understand the context. It was Easter Sharpeville Day on 21st of March 1960. You know, when we had the Sharpeville riots, we commemorated on school, and in every year we had that thing, awareness about apartheid education. And now we have Human Rights Day, and the Constitution have a Bill of Rights. And I'm going to ask Junaid just to share maybe on the platform, what rights do we have? And I think the first point is that we need to know our rights. And with that knowing, we need to defend those rights and also affirm those rights to all of us. It's no use only rich people or educated people claim these rights. We must fight. Net soos Mandela gesê vir die Palestinian mense, your freedom is incomplete with our freedom is incomplete with yours. So the first right, which is very entrenched there, is the right to equality. So this right it's a very basic human thing, but we take it for granted. Equality means that everybody is equal before the law. Whether you're a president or whether you're a homeless person, you should have the same rights in front of the law and shouldn't be unfairly discriminated. Now, this is a very powerful thing because, you know, we come from a past where we used to other each other. We were different based on our tribes, our religion. There was different things that divided us on our gender and our class, on our race and our tribe, and all of those things, and our sexual orientation. But now, well, irrespective of your belief and value system, look, I have my beliefs, you have your beliefs, Stan, but we are brothers, we are each other's keepers. And so the equality, however different you are, I must respect your right to be equal in front of the law and not to be discriminated. I'm going to quickly run through that. If you don't mind, Stan, or do you just want to interrupt me? The next one is human dignity. Can I go? Okay, so the next one is a inherent right to be respected. That one, number 2, in human dignity. Menswaardigheid in Afrikaans. Ubuntu. So menswaardigheid is means that just like I want you to respect me and respect my views and all of that, I also need to accord. So I can't be dominant and I can't be bullying and I can't be pushing your rights down. So that dignity, menswaardigheid is a beautiful word. So that's something. Life, you know, everybody has a right to life. No one can arbitrarily kill you or murder you or do anything. We have a right to privacy. A right to privacy includes your body, your home, and your possessions. So I can't come in your house and steal your stuff and do anything or violate your body. So that's your privacy, your protection around that. Citizenship, no South African may deprive of citizenship. So as a citizen, you have rights and responsibility. You have a right to get all of the entitlements. You have a right to get all the benefits, the grants, the applications, your ID, your birth certificate, free NSFAS, all of those rights because you are South African. Labor relations, every worker and employer has a right to organize and negotiate fair wage and employer relationships. In the past, we had exploitation. The workers could just, the bosses could do whatever they want. That's why we're also giving rights to workers. There's a minimum wage now, which basically protect workers. You can't pay less than 27 rand an hour now. And that is mainly for your security, your domestic workers. But you know, that has freed more than 6 million South Africans because now they're not in that slave. And what some unscrupulous people do, because they foreigners, they pay them under the belt. Or on the farms, they pay you 70 rand an hour because you come from Mozambique. That is not allowed. No? So that's on labor relations. Healthcare, food, water, social services. You have a right to access all of these things. Now, our healthcare is giving mothers, pregnant mothers and children up to 6 years old free medical health care. We're also now expanding national health insurance to ensure that we get adequate health for our people. Yes, our clinics are overcrowded and all of those things. Food security is a big problem. Water and food is very still expensive. And so we must still work on that. Social security, more than 18 million South Africans are getting some form of grant. Children, very important. There's a whole children's right, but children have a right to a name, a nationality, and protection from abuse. Ons dink aan hy kind van Saldanha and all the other children that is denied the rights to be protected by adults. Political rights, again here, all of us have a right to our beliefs, whatever the beliefs, whether you want to believe in the Daga Party or the ANC or the DA, you have a right to your beliefs and you can have free and fair elections. Freedom of religion, beliefs on your opinions. I'm going to try to go through them as quickly as possible because I want you also to engage. Freedom and security of person. This means that no form of violence must be perpetrated on you and no one can detain you without a fair trial. So the police can if you op Noxus. You know what happened to me when I was 15 years old? The police came look for me. They got me at the dead of night at 3, 4 o'clock, and they took me away from my mother's house. I did nothing wrong. My only sin was because I was involved in the struggle, and they took me as a political detainee. That is not allowed anymore. You can't be detained for your political views. They can iets say you because you have the right, but you also have the responsibility. Housing, a right to adequate access to housing. Now, here is very important because you see the Grootboom case made it important that government must progressively realize our people's right to shelter. Now, we have a big problem of housing here in the Western Cape. In fact, everywhere, homelessness, backyarding, and not building enough housing is a big problem. Our city has not spent their housing budget for a while now, but they have sold a lot of land to private developers. So you can see how the city has violated this right. For example, freedom of expression. You have a right to express yourself, but you're not allowed to do hate speech or not allowed to be racist or discriminating. So your freedom of expression is conditioned that you can't impede on my freedom of expression and I can't bully you. Property, no one may derive property except in terms of expropriation. Environment, have a right to safe, healthy environment, freedom of association. You have a right to peacefully and assemble, protest, and demonstrate. You have a right to basic education in any language officially, and also access to a reasonable education and a right to movement and residence. So I'm thought I'd start there. I took a bit of time, but maybe let me pause now and then get your sense of what does this mean for us on the Cape Flats? These rights that we all supposed to have. Do we all enjoy it equally? And what must we do to push it further? Would I stand I think you mute. Stanley, I still can't hear you. I think there's a problem on Stanley's side. So let me just I'm sure he's going to log in again. So for those that are still listening and those that's on the platform, I think for me this human rights, the Bill of Rights has just that I shared now. It's also um, our reflection. So what do you think about these rights? Where are we now? Where do we come from? We know we come from the Sharpeville massacre. We come from even here the legacies of apartheid on the Cape Flats, spatial segregation. There was what they called a Boerdorp, a Buitendorp, and a Onderdorp. So how are we dealing with integration of our spaces? It's still segregated racially. Inferior education, Bantustan and colored education. Are you back, Stan?
Sorry
Yeah,
about
good.
that, man.
No worries.
You've mentioned some very valuable points. I think one of the points that many people would ask watching this from the Cape Flats, housing. We have people that has been on the waiting list. Our mothers, some of our mothers are really passing away. They are at an age where 75, 80 years old. Some of them have, like we said, have been removed from Boerkaap District 6, Constantia, Muizenberg. Some of them are actually now backyard dwellers. That is one of the things that we maybe need to look at. How can we get those people into housing? The other thing I would say, equality. I think equality, if you look at our school system, Faiz, we have still 50 to 60 children almost in a class. That's one of our biggest issues. My issue with provincial, with the DA, and with the national government is that why don't we invest more money in teachers than employing more staff, to be in police or protecting us? I think if we enforce the law, then we don't need more cops. We just need to enforce the law. We don't need more law enforcement. We can then look at catching these young people from a young age already, employing more teachers, more psychologists. I think the Cape Flats is really we still have that old system. It's still the apartheid system is still running here. They're building schools now before the elections. And I don't know if the DA is going to be voted out or if they're going to collision, if the schools will still be available. But I feel that after 17 years or 30 years, you can't say that really we are building schools now. This had to be done like 15, 20 years ago already. So the quality of our education is still, like you mentioned earlier, Bantu qualification, Bantu education. The other thing is this, or Kata education, slavery. The work, many companies in Cape Town are still very much racist. I don't think we know that. Many corporate businesses are treating their people like slaves. Now, if you talk about this, then you a problem because you don't see what these companies are doing, but they are actually underpaying our people. Some companies have medical aid that you can't afford. That is, they don't give people the option. That is slavery. Some people can't afford to pay their bonds because they have to do it through a certain bank. There's a lot of things. And there's something about language. I'm an author. For each, do you know how difficult it is for a colored guy to get his book into the market? You have to be a self-published author in order to write your own books because you don't write Afrikaans. Afrikaans, our language, are not really being accepted. We're still fighting, to write. If you don't write, you should either write Afrikaans or English. You can't write Afrikaans, Afrikaans. That's the language that we've been speaking for many years. You grew up with it. I grew up with it. Well, in actual fact, I think Afrikaans is going to die because our children are speaking English. But it's things like that that we need to relook at. Are we really including the people from the Cape Flats in the
Let me
bigger
let,
community?
let me respond because you raised a few things. You raised language, the language, and you raise labor relations, and you raise housing, and you raise education. So let me start with housing. So the DA has been in power since 2006, but we've seen marked regression in housing delivery. Look, for consecutive years, national government gives, I think, 3 or 4 billion rand for housing delivery for the provincial government. I'm just going to quote quickly. Uh, MEC's Human Settlement Simmers says that since 2007, there's been decline in the number of subsidized housing opportunities. He confirms that a total of 550,000 households in Western Cape has registered on the demand for housing. And they have not. And by August, the biggest share of this, uh, about 40 for 60% is in the city of Cape Town, and now has increased to 600,000. I'll share with you the stats. So the city has a poor housing delivery background. Look, housing is a big problem already, but if you build, so when the ANC was in power, that was like young years before 2016, I was a chief director then. At least we built 16,000 RDP units a year. Né? Now, admittedly, it wasn't the best housing, but it was a roof. It had a property. It was a 50
Yeah.
square meter house. That delivery has failed. Why? Because the DA has not focused on delivering houses for our people. And I'm not saying this because I want to blame. It's there in there's a National Treasury bill which says unspent housing delivery. Then then there's also they are colluding with private developers.
Mm.
Now, there's a lot of that where they sell state land to property private developers, and then they sell the houses at exorbitant price. So as South African, kyk, we as Capetonians kan nie 'n huis afford nie. In
No.
Mitchelsplein, die huise is R1 million. Ek het geskrik die ander dag.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
as a
Yes.
family now, a lot of my nieces and nephews are starting to get married. Hulle bly
Mm.
by hulle ma's in die Mitchelsplein.
Mm.
I mean, my
Yes.
daughter is also now she can't start because she's earning a minimum wage.
Yeah.
So she has to work many years to
Yeah.
get into the housing market. And
Mm.
so I think what we need to do now is to look at how we subsidize. We need to find creative financial instruments. I've also raised it in
Mm.
Parliament that
Yeah.
can't we have a dedicated housing bank? So the
Mm.
idea that I had in Parliament was a dedicated housing bank where we don't charge big exorbitant rates, but that
Mm.
housing bank, you get most of 150,000 grant. If you're a first-time housing buyer, they call
Mm.
it flips, and you haven't got
Yes.
a
Yes.
RDP house, then you can get 150,000 from a national government.
Mm.
So then that can be used as a collateral for a loan. But the problem
Mm.
is they are outpacing ourselves in the market. So I think that's
Yeah.
just one example. We've got evidence around this collusion with private developers. Um, they sell all the public land. The
Mm.
DA is obsessed with selling land, well-located land. And you see all of these flats up and going in Cape Town. These were all
Mm.
state land that they use. And now, if
Yes.
you want to buy a flat in Cape Town, there's nothing under 2 million rand. And that's
Mm.
also where they get their money from. And so there's a
Yeah.
lot of collusion around that. Your fight for our language. There is a Pan-African board which says that
Mm.
we need to protect all rights. Even though
Yes.
Afrikaans is not recognized formally, I think we need to
Yes.
still struggle and fight for that because ons
That's
praat
right.
Afrikaans in a different way. And it's not the
That's
inferior
right.
way ons praat, and I think it must be protected. And I commend you. And
Mm.
that's why I would encourage people to buy our Afrikaans authors because
Yes.
that's how our language gets alive. And our moppies, our songs, we
Mm.
must celebrate that.
Mm.
It will be sad as ons kinders net kan rara in Engels praat. Hulle moet kan die
Yes.
moeder taal praat. So yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Let me pause there.
And you've actually mentioned something now about the future about our kids not be able to afford housing. You are right, Mitchell's plain. You're gonna pay Mitchell's plain 1 million rand for a house. So I raised this conversation with other people, and they said, yeah, but if you look at a house in Joburg, for 1,000 rand, you can get a massive house in Joburg compared to Mitchell's Plain. In KZN, you can also get a massive house, but now obviously what the city is saying, but yeah, but you get better service delivery here. Unit service delivery is something that you don't need every day. Service delivery is something that you need once in a while. But I mean, you need to live comfortably. If you only earn 10,000 rand, you are never going to be able to afford a house of 1 million rand. Never. You're never going to own a house.
You
And
know, we
if
must
the
have
list
this
is so
rule
long,
about Cape Townians for Cape Town, man. You see, the problem
yes,
is baie van ons, the whole rental market now is geared towards Europeans and mense wat kan in
mhm,
ponde and dollars betaal. So
yes,
we need to have that's why we need to have a change in the city government even, because we must have a rule that stops the gentrification. Wat hulle doen in Boekap, né? I've now seen aunties would say, okay, they're going to give me 3 million for my house in Boekap. Hey, dan
yes,
hardloop die
yes,
aunties, and then they
yes,
sell their
yes,
house. Then they move back to Mitchell's Plain. But but then you sold your legacy, your history, your work of your children, all of those things, and at the same time they make the rates quite high. So we
mm,
need to find a mechanism. Now this is a misnomer that the city's delivery is the best. Okay,
mm,
where you pay rates, they do serve. But
mm,
there, in especially in our backyards and in our townships, jy moet net hier also townships, right? Okay, I mean,
yeah,
also Mitchell's Plain is relatively better than, because I travel in all the areas across,
yeah,
and you can see the double standards, sewage, raw shit flowing out of
mm,
a lot of our townships.
yeah,
So it's a misnomer that our services is right. I mean, there was a problem with water the other day. Our rates and water and electricity is highest in the country. Um, so look, I think what they do is probably just better communication and spin. But
mm.
it's Cape Town is still a tale of two cities, and the
No,
budget
exactly.
is in favor of the rich, definitely.
Yes, no. Faiz, if you drive, and I don't want to say this, but if you drive um, not in Belleville, but in Plattekloof, in
Mm,
those areas, you will see Durbanville, and you drive in Bishop Lavis, and you drive in Delft, you will see different cities. You know, we don't even have educate or proper schooling systems. This has been my fight. You know what? If you're gonna help us fight our cycle, our problems, then the first thing you're gonna have to look at is just two things, three things.
yeah.
Is unemployment. You're gonna have to
Mm,
create jobs. The second thing is this: you're going to have to make sure our children have schooling. And the other thing is that you're going to make sure, like on the Bill of Rights, we have safety, we are safe, and we are secure. But is the problem now that we have just something else that I want to bring in? Our kids needs to go in other areas to schools because there's only two schools. There's only one high school in any community on the Cape Flats. We still have one high school, like in Strandfontein and
mhm.
in Parkwood and some other areas, one high school and two primary schools. That is exactly still the system that the NP left behind. We're only going to primary school because we only need to know so much. Only a few of us will finish school. That same system is still running here. And how do they expect us to fight poverty, to find jobs? Many of our kids can't find jobs because they don't have a matric. Because, you know, when you have to go to high school, there's no place for you in your school. So what happens? That
Mm.
child stays at home. I mean, there's cases where children stay at home, they don't go to school, and then they become dropouts.
Yeah, look, the education system is really bad here in in the Western Cape. Now they like to blame it on inward migration and 30,000 new people. But look, we are modern city, so we plan.
Mm,
I mean, Joburg has worse problems, but last year there was more than 35,000 unplaced learners here in the Western Cape alone.
yeah.
They're not building schools fast enough. So what they do, they wanted to keep white schools uh separate, man. They wanted
Mhm,
to say, because a lot of the time if our kids from the township come to say Model C schools, then they say no, you're not staying in the feeding area.
mm,
And now we basically force them to take our kids from our communities. And so now our schools are starting to have the problem, the safety problem. I think the president started with the teacher assistants. So there's more than 35,000 teacher assistants in the school, but that's not enough because now a teacher who's got crowd control for 60 kids has at least a teacher assistant in each of the classes. But that's still far from the problem. And I agree with you. Our safety problem, we need to invest more on teachers and education and social workers than police because we don't have a policing problem. We have a family problem. We have a community problem. We have a drug problem. We have broken families and dysfunctional families. So, I mean, sometimes you can blame government, but also we need to say, how can we uplift our communities? What is the role of the churches and the mosques?
Mm.
And also,
Yes.
ek sê also mense is permanently in a state of eigen roekheid of gesypigheid.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm exaggerating and I'm not meaning to do it in a disrespectful way, but because the poverty is so grinding, a lot of the people we need to sober up ourselves because you see, when we start to unite and stand together and have a consciousness, then we can take things forward. So I agree with you. Look, more needs to be done. The stats is bad. You know, the colored boy child. I don't want to use this, but he is not accessing only 6% of the colored boy child is accessing the NSFAS
Yeah.
matric.
Mm.
So what you need a bachelor pass and you need a university or technicon application acceptance before you can
Mm.
get the full cost bursary from the state, the
Yeah.
NSFAS. And your mother and your father's joint income must be earning less than 350. So a lot of, generations, I think 2 or 3 generations of predominantly African communities have got themselves out of the poverty trap because once kid got a degree, then he study himself, then he pays it forward, and then hopefully they become in the middle class. He becomes a teacher or he works as a professional, and in that way, that family, that mother was a domestic worker or a garage attendant, gets themselves out of that. So it's two generations of out of the poverty trap. What happened in our area, in Pagut, for example, we perpetuate our inequality. The
Mm.
youngster get pregnant, teenage pregnant, they drop along the wayside. They finish then at 7, they're pregnant, they stand in the Sasa line. The
Mm.
future looks very bleak for them. They focus
Yeah.
on the wrong. They don't focus on education. So I agree that we must give more opportunities to Cape Flats. And ek is a MP op die Cape Flats, and I'm really
Mm.
committed to push more opportunities. But you must also take your community out of where they are and to ensure
Mm.
that they take those opportunities. I mean, for me, last time we had this thing about how many small business people have accessed the grants and funding. If government has failed small business, then that is what ek sal doen as a member of parliament. Ek sal say, okay, you have failed X, Y, Z, because that's the oversight role I can play. So
Mm.
I'm also putting it back to our communities. Let's
Yeah.
know our rights. Let's educate and advocate for these rights. And then more, the next step is kom ons baklei for die rights. Let's
Yes.
fight for these rights. I mean, you make the point about labor relations. Sy sien baie van ons mense is bang om by die unions te join. En some van die unions is baie slap. But
Mm.
if the workers unite, then you can every year negotiate an annual increment. You can
Yeah.
negotiate better wages because bosses make a lot of money. They pay you
Mm.
X amount, but your work, your value to them is exponentially more because you generate more profit and wealth for that business.
Mm.
So therefore, it's important for labor relations to do central bargaining. And I know a lot of our people don't believe in the rights. That's why I advocate join a union. Or if you don't
Yes. Yes.
join what form a staff association, have a negotiation because it's
Mm.
your right. Because bosses,
Exactly.
if you don't affirm yourself, the boss is going to
Mm.
pay you peanuts, and then they want to
That's right.
perform
Yes.
miracles. So I see that on the Cape Flats, a lot of our
Mm.
workers are being bullied
Mm-hmm.
in terms of medical aid, in terms of housing, and all the other benefits. And they pay them the bare minimum. And also, they
Yeah.
don't protect. You have a right not to be unfairly dismissed. But the
Mm.
thing is, also mense moet ons rights ken. You must be
Yes.
activism. That's the point I'm
Mm-mm.
making, Stan.
And then it is exactly what you're saying. I always get these type of messages. Uncle Stan, I was I was fired on the spot and I did nothing, is because we don't know our rights. And I think for that reason we need to educate ourselves. We need to know what it is that we can do to protect ourselves. I mean, you get companies that really underpay our people and they get away with it, and then all the boss tell you, you know what, it's difficult times, but the boss goes 7 8 times a year overseas. He buys new cars, but his business is doing bad. I think for is the other thing also that I feel
Mm.
that we should really push and get out there is that, I always see certain people in our community taking photos at businesses, but they never invest in our businesses. I think that is one of the things that I want to actually approach the government, national government, but actually mostly local government, provincial government. Why aren't you investing in small businesses? Because if you invest in small businesses on the Cape Flats, you create a conducive environment because there will be less gangsters, they will be employed. The other thing is this: your unemployment problem will become a problem of the past because nobody's employing us. Nobody's really employing us because there's no companies, there's no businesses in our community. We should actually bring the businesses to the people. And I think, like the one business here, there's a call center.
Mm.
People don't have to go to town because when you go to town and you have to travel back, it's from your money you have to buy food. And let's say you earn 4,500 in a month, your traveling is 1.5 a month. You have to buy food. You literally have about 1,500 left for the month. There is no money to live from. With electricity rates that's so expensive, what you must pay rent as well. That actually forces our people to say, okay, it's fine. I'm going to leave the job because I don't make money from working. So that's things equality means also. And in Cape Town, I've done a bit of research, and maybe you would know. In Cape Town, colored people are still being paid less than many of the other races. And that is something that we need to address because
So,
how can a person that does the same work as you and apparently have the same pay grade as you live in the upper class areas? Unless there is money that they have, not everybody would inherit money, but there's people that even if you apply for a loan at certain banks, they look at your color, they look at where you live. That is not part of the equality bill. So there's a lot of
yeah.
things for is that we
So,
still
so, so
need to
let
fix.
so let me come in here. I think the in terms of that is unfair discrimination. Equal pay
Mm,
for equal work. So that's a rule in parliament. So if I am a cleaner and you a cleaner and we
yeah.
are on the same pay grade, we should have the same pay standard. Sometimes they change it based on experience and qualification, but that must be justified. Especially women, they call it the
Mm,
glass ceiling. From mense, or doen dieselfde accountant werk, but because there's a man, that is unlawful and discriminatory, and they can't do it based on race also. I think the
mm.
other issue that you've raised about was I wanted to respond now, man. Just remind me again, Stan, the issue that before this about unfair labor that you picked up.
Like there's a lot of people that
Oh
that,
yes,
that
the
said they will
business,
fight. Yes,
the township economy. Sorry,
yes.
in KZN and Gauteng. Let me just quickly. I know it's amper Maghrib, but they have a policy called township economy. So what they do, they put a lot of the money. So in the townships, the main road of the township, they're trying to make like a high street, like a main road. So township economy, there's a policy, there's a bill. They put billions of rands in Joburg, Kwamashu, in Joburg also. So where to Eldorado Park. So what they want to do, they say township property must become mainstream. They put money in. There's a bank now for township economy. So that two cities, Durban and Joburg, is doing a lot. What is happening in the city of Cape Town? They're not providing businesses license to our informal traders. So hulle ja die mense weg op die parade, the jale weg van die Gatesville, and they're not doing that. So I think what we need to do is we need to fight for that. We need to ensure that, and I like your concept of the call center in Strandfontein. I've also now encouraged call centers in Athlone. I spoke to one or two of the big service providers and say, look, don't be scared of our communities, man. We can save, we can secure this, and it will cut down on transport costs, and it will bring jobs closer to our people. So bring those call center jobs into our
mm,
townships. There's big places in Mitchells Plain. I was also speaking to one in the town center. Now,
mm,
admittedly, the town center is not yet ready, but if you do proper security and all of that, then we can bring business to the township. So I'm all for township economy, but it
mm,
must be a deliberate plan. And I'm
mm,
also all for giving opportunities, especially for those that have not. It's better to give someone a 30,000 Rand to start a small business, a car wash or this or that, than to give them constantly a handout. So I'm with you
correct,
on that one.
correct. Faiz, I know it's almost time for us to agree, but there's one last question I want to just pose to you, put you in the hot box. What do you think the predictions? I mean, that is the question many people want to know. Who do we vote for? Who do we give a chance? What can we expect? I think that is the question many people, and we are still going to talk about this, me, myself, and you, in the next couple of months. But what do you think? What do you predict the DS still to be in charge of Cape Town? With the whole Palestine and the Israel not conflict, but thing that conversation that that there is currently going around. I mean, it has been said that the DA is pro Israel. Do you think that would also affect at the polls?
At polls. Yeah, look, I think it's very clear that a lot of people are seeing the DA's true colors now. In the past, they used to hide behind the ANC's corruption, and now the ANC is getting its house in order. It's getting things done. President Ramaphosa is going slowly but surely. He's dealing with it. It might not be as fast as what we can, but he's a president that's every day at work, plodding a little bit, and you can see changes post-COVID. So people are slowly realizing that. Look, the DA's veneer of this uh Angel is also coming. We see the collusion. They see jobs, white jobs for pals. You see how they only give jobs for their white counterparts. Black people can't get, or colored people can't get procurement in the city. So people are hurtful of the DA. And I think that's the thing. But now that the fact that they openly support the occupiers and Zionists, not only now, they've always been supporters of Israel and apartheid. Even when we fought against Palestine, they were sanction busters. So their DNA is to protect privilege, economic privilege, maintain those that are in positions of power and rich, and keep the downtrodden down. So a lot of people are hurtful of the DA. Look, I'm hopeful that the blinkers can be pulled off. A lot of things divide us. The ANC has always been the oldest liberation movement. Was it Klipgegooid? And a lot of people were disappointed with the disillusion for the ANC. The ANC is getting its house in order. We have not been in power since 2006. So all of the problems that the Cape Townians are experiencing is not because of the ANC here in the Western Cape. The fact that we're not getting progressive realization of their rights, this human rights that we're talking about, we're supposed to be far advanced. Your generation's supposed to be sorted. Me and you supposed to be sorted, and our kids supposed to be middle class, and we need to grow a generation of prosperity. We're not yet there. So it's also the policy decisions that we make. And it's also, they've continued divide and ruling us. And they've also kept us drunk and gesep and geroep all the time. So I think we are getting a bigger consciousness. And so I'm hopeful that the ANC can be part of that options that people can choose. And I'm asking people to give us an opportunity. Look, I'm at the national government. I'm one of the top 100 members of the ANC. So if the ANC gets 50%, I get into the parliament. So if nothing else, vote for the ANC because you want Faiz, your member of parliament in parliament, to come back. Because there's also the system. If we don't get 50%, not 50% of our members will come back. So I'm asking our listeners, our members, they know me. Ek Kofani plain enough. I come from this area. I'm committed to my people. I'm going nowhere slowly. I will be here. And so I will continue serving. Whether I come back to Parliament or it's irrelevant. We will continue like now every day. I'm not talking about it, but we do feeding, we help our communities, and we continue to serve where we can. So I'm asking our members to give us a chance. Let's vote the Zionists out. Hulle ken nie vir julle nie man. Hulle vat net ons votes van ons mense. And if you can't vote vote for the ANC, at least don't vote for His Highness supporting party. Don't vote for the Patriotic Alliance because hulle nog 'n ander groep. I mean, the others, I think there's options there, but give you first consideration for the African National Congress. Ek moet mos hy pitch doen, Boeddha Stel. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Luis. We will be back soon,
Okay.
and we will have,
Okay.
have a conversation again. Eh? Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thanks, brother. Take care. Nah?
Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Appreciate your time. Take care.
Pleasure, sir.